Do you want to sign off?
Should I?
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying I'm done? I don't know how that went. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 1. This is my journey, my story. I get a lot of questions about where I came from and how I got where I'm at. I'm just going to talk about that a little bit today. If you join me for the first time, my name's Brad Hogan. I'm a business guy here in Central Florida. And just talking really about pivoting through life. And this is really the pivot, what I'm getting ready to talk about. But just me, childhood, I grew up in Indiana, was born, raised, educated there. Got a mom and dad that have been married now for over 60 years. And I got one sister that's older. She's a couple years older, very creative. She's a creative one in the family. She was also the one always in trouble when we were at home. I've got a brother that's 5 years younger. My brother and I are very close. We talk almost every day. He is an attorney here in Central Florida, business guy. We just had a great childhood. We were into all the sports. So my sister was a cheerleader and a basketball player and volleyball player. I played baseball, basketball, football. My brother, he played baseball and basketball. My brother, really a humble guy. Didn't like to talk about it much, but he was a big-time baller. He's in a couple Hall of Fames and played basketball at the University of Florida. Was a point guard. Won an SEC championship while he was there. Just really proud of him. Proud of my little brother. But when we were growing up, really from a working class family or upbringing, I really saw my father do, and I understand today, what my father did in one generation typically takes families several generations to do. My father, one of 13 kids, grew up in the South. They're farmers, poor, and my mother, her father was an immigrant from Germany. She's got 3 brothers, and my mother and father got married right out of high school. And my dad just believed the future was education. Never once in my household did anyone ever ask me if I was going to college. We knew we were going to college. I don't even think they asked me where. We knew where we were going to college. We were raised in the church, and we were at church. Sunday morning we went to Sunday school and church, and Sunday night we were in church, and during the week we were in church. And I just really, really appreciate the way my parents viewed church and our faith. It's really an intricate part of who I am today. What I'm talking about is I remember being in Little League Baseball, so I'm like, I'm probably between the ages of 9 and 12. We just had a baseball game. It's summertime. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, and we won the game. And the coach comes over to the dugout, and he's talking to all of us. He says, okay, we have another game, 3 days, and we've got practice 2 nights this week. The next 2 days we got practice. Can everybody be there? Everybody holds up their hand. Well, there was one kid, his name was Chris. He said, Coach, I can't be there. And the coach said, okay, well, why can't you make it? And Chris said, well, my mom makes me go to church on Wednesday nights. And the coach said, well, that's a pretty good reason to miss practice. It's okay. We're not going to hold it against you. We'll see you at the next practice and at the game. That was it. But what I remember about that is when I was playing tackle football, youth tackle football, so I'm like the same age, I don't know, 9, 10 years old. Those games were always on Sundays. And if I had a 12 o'clock game, well, church didn't get out till 12 o'clock. I needed to leave the church at 10 to get there for the game at 11, etc. I remember thinking, well, can I go to the game? And my mom and dad said, well, yeah, absolutely, we're going to the game. Tell you what, we'll go to Sunday school. You go back to one of those classrooms, change into your football uniform. Your dad will go with you, and then your sister, brother, and I, my mom talking, will be there as soon as church is out. And that's the way we did everything. My dad explained to me being a Christian is who we are. It's not what we do. God wants you to go play football. That was just our view. And I think it was a real healthy view. And I've got that view today. I mean, I tell my buddies, hey, we don't always do the right thing. We're all trying. We're cutting up. And I think as I'm riding down the road, if God was in the back seat or Jesus was in the back seat, he'd be cutting up, goofing off with us too. And I just mention it because it makes me who I am. And it's just kind of the view we have. As we got older, teenagers growing up in the church, all of our friends from high school, they came to our church because we made the youth group so much fun. We were those kids that were doing something during the week, all summer long. We were doing scavenger hunts. We were doing games. It was a blast. It was just totally fun. We just packed the place out on the weekends with all of our friends from high school. Good time. All my friends were getting new cars when they turned 16. And my sister, because my dad was a corporate executive, when my sister turned 16, she got to order a new car. And when she turned 17, she ordered another new car. And when she turned 18, she ordered another new car. Here I am 2 years younger than her. And my buddy around the corner got a 2-year-old 911 Porsche from his dad. His dad was one of the docs there in town. And then my other buddy got a brand new lifted Blazer, and my other buddy got a new Corvette. And my dad said, hey, your 16th birthday's coming up. You been looking at any cars? And I said, yeah. Me and my buddy's been driving through the car lot. So I'm looking at that new Roadrunner. And my dad said, well, I guess. He said, I'd like to have one of those. You look at any used cars? And I said, used cars? Who wants a used car? I got a used car. I paid for half of it. And I appreciated it. And my dad took care of me. We ended up macking out the car. It was a cool car. It was just going through my childhood. It's one of those things I remember. I drove that car for maybe a year or two. And then my dad ended up getting me a newer car, sportier. I don't know if he felt sorry for me or what, but he explained to me, you're a guy, and if you want a new car, you can work for it. You can get you a new car. The reality is, as I was going through high school, I wanted to work. I wanted to save my money. I wanted to make my own money because I wanted a stereo system. I wanted some other stuff, but I always found a way, whether it was passing papers. I know everybody talks about having paper out. Man, I hooked into this system. It wasn't the big city paper. It was a local periodical. But the way they paid, man, I'd pass that thing out twice a week. I was making bank. And I just started saving all my money. Quickly, I was in high school and I had saved and made and saved about $10,000 of my own money. And I didn't want to spend it. It stayed with me as I got towards my senior year of high school. My dad had bought one of these TRS-80 computers. It's one of the first computers that came out you could have at home. I don't know that it was the first, but it was early stage before the internet. And my dad took a programming class, and he wrote this program. It was line 10, line 20, line 30. It was if-then statements, all that stuff. You know about that. He really wrote a program for baseball. It would calculate everything from batting average to slugging percentage, on base percentage, etc. I just came up with a sheet that would mark down whether you got a single, a double, a triple, a home run, how many people were on base, the RBIs. I came up with this long spreadsheet that would calculate all this stuff. I went to the local Little League and said, hey, would you let me announce the games and I'll do this. I'll keep these stats for you. They said, yeah. In fact, we pay $5 a game. We'll pay you $10 if you'll do that. So I thought, well, that's cool. There's 3 games a night during the summer every night. Saturdays, there's like 8 games. So, do the math. Here I am going through this thing as a kid. Well, it didn't stop there. There's like 8 leagues throughout the city. So I got with all of them. And then I got with Post 6, and then which is Legion Baseball. Well, they'll pay $40 a game. And there's double header every weekend. And obviously I can't be at 8 places at once, so I hired other people to work for me. And then at night, I would tabulate all this stuff, have it ready for the next morning, all while I was working a job. And the point in saying that is, I just remember most of my life, I worked 2 jobs, but really it's kind of like working a job and having a business. One paid for my lifestyle, my necessities, and the other one I got to save my money or invest. That just stayed with me. As I went to college, I had another moment that was similar to the car. My sister was there 2 years before me, private university, and I go to my mailbox freshman year, first semester. Go to the mailbox. I have got a invoice for the first semester of college. I think, what? My dad didn't pay for this? I was really mad at my dad. I called him up and said, hey, what about this? I got with my sister, and she said hers is paid for. Why didn't mine paid for? He said, well, you're a guy. I'll make you a deal. You pay for first semester, and as long as you get your grades, you may have 1 C. Everything else got to be A's and B's. I'll pay for second semester. And I didn't like it. I was so mad at my dad, I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't talk to him for probably a year. I was just so ticked off. But you know what that made me do? Most of the kids I went to college with graduated with debt, and it took them 5 years to finish school. No summer classes. I graduated with a double major in 4 years. I was not going to pay for another semester. And I didn't have any student loans. I paid for half my school, private university, extremely expensive, about 55, maybe 60 grand to attend this year, to go without room and board. Paid my way through, and no student loans. Just life lesson that my dad taught me, and graduated. I had a little over $30,000 saved when I graduated from college. My brother, of course, he was on basketball scholarship. He was on full ride scholarship. Anyway, such is life. I don't know if that's better or worse. While I was on campus, I remember going to get a job on campus. I went in, they looked at my paperwork, and they said, your parents make too much money. We can't subsidize your education. And I said, well, that's not fair, because I'm paying for my school, paying for half of it, even though my parents' income, it doesn't affect me. And they considered that, and they said, okay, all right, we got a job for you. I had that job, and then I created a business on campus. I'd talk more about that later, but again, dual income. Once I graduated from college, all my buddies were taking the corporate jobs. One of my buddies went out to LA, took the job with HP, beautiful place. I went out there and saw a headhunter and talked to him, but when the headhunter looked at what I was currently doing and the money I was making, the headhunter says, no way, we can't pay you that kind of money. What I did right out of school, I didn't take any of the corporate jobs. I had a couple buddies that were in real estate. They were buying and selling properties. They weren't realtors. They didn't have a real estate license. But I went and sat in their office, and they were trying to do a cell phone business on the side. So I came in, they said, look, if you want to sell cell phones, 100% commission, here you go. I sat in the corner of that office and learned about the real estate deal, and I sold cell phones to pay my way. I was there less than 3 months. I knew what I was going to do. I'm going to go do the real estate thing. There was a guy named Tom Vu. I don't know where that guy is today, but it was the beginning of infomercials, late night TV, Vietnamese guy on a sailboat or a yacht with about 10 women around him. Look at my life. I'm Tom Vu. I did this through real estate. I showed up at the big hotel ballroom. There were 1 million people there. I don't know, probably 1,000 people in the room. Out of the 1,000 people, they give the sales pitch. I can't remember how much the class was. It was a couple $1,000 or something. Probably 100 people out of the 1,000, they want to take the class. There was about 100 of us. That class was for like a week. I think it was Monday through Friday. It was like 8 hours a day. I stayed in there. I took my notes. everything. Ironically, when you graduate, when you get done with that class, they put you in these groups of about 10 people. So there's about 10 groups. It's kind of like a support system type thing. What are you doing? Let's get together. Well, life lesson here I learned. One guy, I work too much. I just can't do it. Another lady, my kids. Everybody had an excuse. And there was me and one other guy. And there was one guy that was doing something, and then I found a piece of real estate, I sold it, I fixed it up, and I flipped it over in less than 90 days. I made $27,000 on the piece of real estate. I find that to be true today in everything. Most people won't do it. Even the people that do it have a hard time making it successful. And this is no matter what you're doing out there. Over and over and over. I remember sometime later I bought a marketing deal online, and that box, it sat in my closet till I threw it away one day. I never opened it, never did anything with it. My point is, so much stuff that we talk about and we learn about in life, it works, but you've got to apply it. You got to take the box out of the closet. It doesn't just magically appear. And I get that today in my business. People think there's $1 million in a handshake, but there's hard work behind it. It's respect I have for the other people. Shortly after the real estate thing, that thing kept going. I ended up with about 7 properties in a short period of time. The way that went, I took a corporate job. My father worked in the auto industry in powertrain. I took a job at one of the factories there in my town. I started out with Chrysler, got hired away by GM. I did that for 7 years, but as soon as I went in there, I started getting my MBA. They paid for education. You had to go through a process. You had to be selected. You had to be on a track. But I did that. That was extremely expensive, but they paid for it all. Got an MBA with an emphasis in finance. After I was there in the auto industry, corporate America, for 7 years, I quit. And the way that came about, I didn't just one day decide I was going to quit. I was home in the evening. I got the Fidelity magazine in the mail. And I remember I'm laying on my back on my sofa looking at this magazine. And I've got a pencil in my hand. And it's a retirement calculator. And here I am. I'm like late 20s. Man, I'm 27, 28 years old. I was so mad reading that magazine. I could not get where I wanted to go doing what I was doing. And I was doing everything I knew to do. I was working tons of hours. I owned, at that time, I don't know. I probably owned a dozen properties, some of them multi-unit, rentals. I was in them right. I had money in the bank. Saving my money. My hobby, I messed around with cars. I had a Corvette that I was flipping over all the time. My wife drove a Corvette. I drove a Corvette, and I had a third Corvette I was working on. And they were all for sale. And they were late model. And when I say working on them, maybe the window switch wasn't working or the carpet was messed up or something. I'd buy it at the auction, and the car would be current year or maybe a year or two older at the time. Always what I wanted to do was drive the car, get all the money I'd paid for the car, plus my plates, my insurance, everything out of my car. I drove a car basically for free, and then that third car I'm working on was always a moneymaker. It was just a fun hobby, and always get to drive a new convertible Corvette. So I'm going through this deal. And initially, I went back home to live when I was doing the corporate job. My buddies making fun of me. I have plenty of money. They're making fun of me. I said, man, all I do is work, I'm okay. One day, my dad came home and he goes, hey, Herschel McCon, I think his house is for sale. And I go, what? He goes, Herschel, I think his house is for sale. That'd be a nice house for you. I think my dad was kicking me out. So I went and looked at Herschel's house, and I had this business mind, let's make a deal. We're in Indiana, but this guy, Herschel, he was an engineer, but he was actually from Hawaii. So his family was there from Hawaii, and I knew, man, the price of real estate in Hawaii is crazy compared to the Midwest. And his family, they didn't really care about that little house he had. But while they were there for the funeral, they all flown in, I got with one of the sisters and said, hey, if your brother's house is for sale, I'm interested. She came back. She said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to, I said, well, we can close on it while you guys are here. She goes, like, in a couple days? I said, yeah, absolutely. We can close on it. But I need to do something here. I want to buy all the contents, all the furniture, the TV, everything. The new washer and dryer. We made a deal. I went to the bank. I got a mortgage. I got busy. I paid that mortgage off within 24 months. I don't buy it when I hear younger people say, well, it's not the same today. I get it. Prices are different, but, get your butt to work. If a house is what you want, go get it. Get in there and divide up those payments, figure out how long it's going to take you to pay it off. You don't have to take 30 years or 15 years. Just get to work on it. But I stayed in that house then, too. My wife and I, going to visit some friends from college, they had moved into this nice ranch house. We had a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and our house was probably about 1,000 square feet. Had a basement, had a detached garage, 1-car detached garage. It was humble beginnings. Go see our friends, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. Nice place. I remember coming back home from Ohio and my wife saying to me, well, gosh, you make a lot more money than our friends. Why don't we have a house like that? And I said, well, we'll get there. I mean, we're fine where we're at. Let's just buy some more property. I remember then my friends moving into a 2-story house. They've now got a 4 or 5-bedroom house, and nice. We're still in this little house. But eventually we moved. We moved into a 3-bedroom, 3.5-bath ranch on an oversized lot. I think I took a 7-year note, paid it off early. Then we went into like a 5,200 square foot house. We were able to pay for that house. Just remember that going forward. As I left corporate America, it was my business and then real estate is what it looked like. I was in the finance business and construction. Always stayed in the construction stuff from the real estate. As I moved through that, a couple years in the finance business, and I sold off that little company. I was doing rolling stock and yellow iron, and there's more to that story at another time, I can tell. But I ended up doing PPMs, private placement memorandums, Security Exchange Act 1933, small cap, $5 to $10 million. And basically what that means, people would bring me ideas for businesses they wanted to expand. You've got a company and you want to open offices in Chicago, New York, Miami, etc. Hey, I need to borrow $10 million. I've got the guys. It's kind of a private equity thing. They're going to be your partners. The beauty of it is you don't have to pay that money back like you would a bank. You've got these partners, and they're really strong, good partners to have. Your business is thriving, takes off, guys there to write a check. These 42 clients I've got, every single one of them can pull out a checkbook right now and write a check for $1 million out of their stock account. They're just looking to do something different. These guys, super smart. They've already got 3 houses and 10 cars, and the grandkids' education's funded. Great place to be, a great circle of influence to be around. That business just really thrived. It took off. As I got out of that business, I looked around and I had seen from the corporate days, so many of those people would retire and shortly after pass. They'd pass away. That's not all of them, but I see it happen a lot. I thought, man, that's not going to be me. I'm going to enjoy my life. So I was late 30s. I moved to Costa Rica, lived in Costa Rica for 8 years, had went through a divorce. My fault. Focused on the business, focused on other things, not paying attention at home. Don't recommend it. If you're going to go through it, you can either make it a mess or you can make the best of it. I took off. I went to Costa Rica. In Costa Rica, I thought it was retirement time. That's what I thought it was going to be like. But what I shortly found out was my friends would come down. You guys would come down to visit me. We'd go play golf. We'd go fishing. We'd hang out for 3, 5, maybe 10 days. And then somebody would go, hey, Brad, man, I got a family. I got a business to run. I got a job. I got to go home. I would be sitting there for 30, 60, 90 days by myself talking to my buddies. Hey, come on down. I'll fly you down. I didn't want to start drinking. I didn't want to do that. Let's do the right thing here. One of my friends, his name Chime, a little older than me, a lot older than me at the time. Jaime was in his early 70s. I was in the casino playing cards. Jaime owned one of the casinos down there. He came over and sat down. He said, "Hey, do you want to go play some golf on Saturday? I need to talk to you." I said, "Sure, let's go play some golf." So as we were playing the round, he said, "Listen, the Europeans, Americans are coming down here like crazy buying real estate. Why don't we do a land deal?" So we did. I made some money. Jaime made a lot of money. I went into the second deal, the third deal, the fourth deal. I did the second, third, and fourth on my own. When I went to do my own deal, Jaime couldn't have been more generous. He shook my hand. He said, "I knew you'd do your own deal. If there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. I'm happy to help you." I got into a second deal. The phone kept ringing. These people who bought lots asking, "Can you build me a house?" I thought, well, that's not what we do. We're hanging up the phone. And I got thinking about that. I thought, this is crazy. These people want us to build a house, and I'm just turning away the money. I need to help them. I'm in a better position being here, knowing the lay of the land, how everything goes. I found a guy in Tennessee that could build the houses. He knew how to build. I didn't know how to build houses. He came down, showed me what that looked like. As we're going through it, he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, I can build these houses, but I don't know anything about roofs in Central America. You know anything about roofing?" I just looked at him, I go, "You're kidding me." Right back into roofing. I had learned the trade while I was going through college. I worked for a construction company on the weekends and in the summers. While I was working for that construction company, I was an extra. So I might be doing bathroom tile one day, and they're not going to let me lay it. I'm over there putting the mud on it, handing it to them. I might be helping the concrete guys, or I might be helping the guys install tubs and showers, or I might be roofing. Of everything I did, I liked the roofing the best. And roofing was awesome. I soon got to do a roofing deal. Here I am in Costa Rica, and it's right back to hands-on. I've got to learn about tile. So I was flying back and forth to Colombia. There's a little barrio there outside of in Antioquia's Medellin. There in Poblado, which is up in the mountain there from Medellin, is a manufacturer. They used to make it by hand back in the early 2000s, and since turned that into a factory where they produce that clay tile by machine. I learned all about tile. No deck, no underlayment, just sits on a 1x4 batten. It's a Loctite system. That's part of the reason why I sit on that committee, and I've got an interest in giving back. Writing the Florida building code for roofing is where that desire comes from, trying to build a better roof and helping people out. Costa Rica for 8 years, came back home as my kids were getting older, starting to go to college. The youngest still in high school. Watched my daughters, they're both cheerleaders in high school, and my son was off to college. Came back from Costa Rica, and after living there for 8 years and did well there, didn't have anything financed at all. And he said, "Well, I think I want to stay in this apartment complex over here." We went, looked around, really nice. Nothing like when I went to school. I said, "Okay." I looked at the girl that was walking us around. I said, "What's the next step?" And she said, "Well, you need to fill out an application." He had to fill one out. I had to fill one out. She was gone for about 10 minutes. She came back. She goes, "Okay, well, you guys passed a background check." I go, "What's that about?" "If you have any criminal history, the parents or the student can't stay here." "You know, what's next?" She said, "It'd just be a few more minutes." We sat there for 15 minutes, and that turned into half an hour, and that turned into an hour, and there were several people in and out of the conference room. And so the general manager came in, and he sat down. He said, "Is this your real ID?" And I said, "Yeah, that's me. That's who I am." And he said, "Well, do you own a house?" I said, "Yeah. I own a house, got a couple of them." He said, "Car?" I said, "Yeah, I got a few of them." He said, "Well, you're like a ghost." I said, what do you mean?" He said, "You got no credit history at all." And I said, "Well, I don't know anybody any money, And he said, "Well, I don't know what to do because I work for a corporation, big corporation that owns several of these apartment complexes in university towns. You cannot rent an apartment here unless you get a 620 credit score. What if I pay for the whole year?" And he said, if you can do that, yeah, we'll go ahead and rent it to you." So we wrote a check for the year. There's always a way to figure it out, provided you want to and you need to. It stays with me today as my parents get older. You know, the choices, the options, the things we get to do. As I fast forward from that situation, coming back from Costa Rica, had a handful of business interests since I've been here, right back into roofing since really 2012. Here in the States, 12 to 2018, I guess for 2 years it was kind of back and forth a little bit, business and travel. Then in 2018, I met a guy here locally, young guy trying to figure it out. He just had a little roofing company. When I saw the volume, I thought, what's going on here? I mean, you got to build a company. To be a participant, and I won't take all the credit by any means, but to be a participant in that business, watch that thing go from $3 million to $52 million. You know, once you build a company, to build a second company or build a third company or build a fourth company, you figure some stuff out. And you just do it faster, quicker, better, more profitable. That company went from $3 million to $52 million in 4 years and 7 months, and recently sold. And it's ironic, as I get older and I look at retirement and I look at my kids taking over businesses or starting businesses for themselves, here I am. It's two incomes. It's roofing, and then I'm getting call after call after call. It's coaching and teaching. You know, how do you do this? How do you go from 3 to 52? How'd that happen? What's that look like? What are all the steps in between? No matter what we're looking at on the internet, I want you to know I don't have all the answers. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it. Hey, no matter what you guys are doing, just keep the perspective. As I see my kids get older, see my parents get older, it's all about perspective. It's all about family. Love you guys. I'll see you in the next one.